Shavua Tov, a good vach. Tonight's story, a true story that took place close to 300 years ago in the times of the Baal Shem Tov, Rabbi Yisrael, the Baal Shem Tov. One Friday night, as Baal Shem Tov was sitting at his Shabbos meal together with his many students, all of a sudden, near the time of the serving of the fish, he just burst into laughter. His students are very puzzled because there's nothing going on in the room at the table to be laughing about. But it was like he was privy to some kind of joy, some kind of humor that no one else was aware of. But they had too much respect to ask anything or say anything. A few minutes go by, the next course is served, and again the Baal Shem Tov bursts into a joyous laughter, as if he just saw the funniest thing in the world. And again, no one knew what's going on, no one asked. And again, a third time, at the third course, again, he burst into joyous laughter. It was very confusing to the students, but they had too much respect to ask anything, and Shabbos went by. When Shabbos was over, Baal Shem Tov turned to his students and said, "Surely you're curious as to why I was laughing. If you want to join me for a trip, you'll soon find out what happened." So they got into the wagon, and through the night they traveled. Baal Shem Tov gave directions, and in the morning they woke up in front of a house, a very simple house, in a nearby city called Koznitz. Baal Shem Tov knocked on the door, there's a nice mezuzah on the door, and an elderly Jew with a nice white beard opens the door. Shocked to see the Baal Shem Tov himself with his many students standing in his doorway, he says, "Come in, Rebbe, come in. And to what do I owe the pleasure of your visit?" Baal Shem Tov turned to this gentleman whose name was Shabsi. His profession was a bookbinder, and you might not be surprised, he wasn't very wealthy. There weren't that many people who could afford who had books and who could afford to bind their books, and he and his wife were getting along in years and not quite successful. So Shem Tov said, "Shabsi, could you please tell me and my students what took place in your house Friday night?" And Shabsi heard those words, he turned pale, he got very emotional, he said, "Rebbe, if I did something wrong, tell me what it was and tell me how to fix it." Baal Shem Tov smiled, calmed down this Shabsi, the bookbinder, and said, "Shabsi, don't worry. I just want to know what you did. I want you to tell my students." So Shabsi said to the Rebbe that Friday was a very long, difficult week, and I hadn't earned very much. In fact, there was no money for candles or wine or chalot for the Shabbos. Just the basic eating, so we shouldn't be fasting. And I spoke to my wife when I explained to her that it's better to have a simple Shabbos than to have to use charity funds and ask for friends, ask for favors. And I said to her, if you agree, let's not beg or borrow or steal. Let's just have a simple Shabbos, even if that means it's dark and it's cold and it's lonely and without wine, challah, and candles. And she agreed. So, with nothing to do in the house, no cooking, not much cleaning, Shabsi went off to the synagogue, and he began to say Tehillim and Shir HaShirim and many of the prayers we say Friday afternoon. When the services ended Friday night, Shabsi waited till the streets were empty so no one would be with him and see the dark house and question, why is your house dark without candles on a Friday night? As he approached his house on the lonely streets of Koznitz, he sees light streaming out of the windows. He peers through the window and he sees candles burning, a bottle of wine on the table, challahs under their cover, salad and fish. The table is set like for a king. And his first thought was honestly a little to be angry. Obviously his wife had given in. She couldn't bear the thought of having too simple of a Shabbat. She must have gone to one of the neighbors and borrowed or begged for help. Well, two wrongs don't make a right, so for him to go in and be angry at her won't help the situation. So he resolved not to say anything and not to be upset, although he was quite upset that she broke the deal. He walks into the house, and he can't help but look at his wife with some disappointment at this beautiful Shabbos table. Not that it wasn't nice, but it wasn't what he expected. And how else could it have been there if not for borrowing from friends? His wife saw the look and understood it, and she ran over with great joy and said, "Shabsi, Shabsi, don't worry. I kept the bargain. I didn't borrow. I didn't beg. I decided to clean this house in honor of Shabbos, especially since I had extra time, since I wasn't cooking or baking. And while I was cleaning the house and I went through the closets, I found an old dress back from our early days after our wedding. And there was a very expensive button made out of silver, pure silver. I ran to the store and they gave me money for the silver button, and I still had time to go and buy the challah and fish and wine and all the things we need for Shabbos, the candles. That's how it happened, without begging, borrowing, or taking from others. Shabbos was so excited to have a beautiful Shabbat and to have kept the bargain and relied on Hashem, and Hashem came through for them without having to ask for favors. He grabbed his wife's hand and they danced around the Shabbos table with tremendous joy. Then, of course, he sang Shalom Aleichem, Eshes Chayil, he made the Kiddush, washed his hands for the motzi, and after they ate the fish, again, he was so overcome with the joy of Shabbat, and the joy of a beautiful Shabbat, and the joy of a beautiful Shabbat, without having to come on to others for favors. He again grabbed his wife's hand and danced around the table, and the same thing happened a third time. So he said to the Baal Shem Tov, this is the only difference of my Friday night, that my wife and I danced 3 times out of great joy of the Shabbat to celebrate it in a beautiful way. The students immediately understood why the Baal Shem Tov, miles and miles away, why he burst into laughter those 3 times. So Shabsi says to Baal Shem Tov, if there was something wrong, tell me how to fix it. And Baal Shem Tov said, no, God forbid. Shabsi, you not only didn't you do anything wrong, God forbid, but your joy made a tremendous impression in heaven. The angels rejoiced with your joy and brought your situation before Hashem. Shabbos and his wife were facing 2 difficulties. One was they were poor. One was they had never been blessed with children. Baal Shem Tov said to Shabsi, the joy that you demonstrated this Shabbat has changed things for you, and tonight in heaven it was decided that you and your wife will be blessed with a son. A year went by, a little boy named Yisrael was born to Shabsi and his wife, and this boy grew up to be a great tzaddik known as the Magid of Koznitz, Rabbi Yisrael Friedman, actually Hopstein. Joy, grab it, bring it into your life and share it. Good luck.